So it sounds like it was almost a search for what is true in Western religion and what is true in Eastern religion, and sort of um, coming up with a sort of a synthesis or a combination of the truths from those two areas.
Absolutely, and I would say that the thing that Science of Mind adds in is the creative power of thought.
Sensei once, often used to say, as part of the founding uh, tenets of the Kai, was look for the similarities and beware of people who constantly draw attention to the differences, because often they only try and draw attention to themselves. But and that's been basically what you were just saying, Carol, is something that I personally have been seeking out and exploring since I first started to wake up. And for me, that through reading Lao Tzu and Benjamin Hoff, and there was this like doorway that opened into a much world that continued to make me go and look at all these different religions, all these different faiths, all these wonderful, realized, enlightened people. What do they have in common? I think a lot of attention is often paid to differences because we can get into reasons for that. A lot of that is political and controlling, etc. But if you get to like the core of what so much of these seemingly divergent philosophies or religions actually speak to, the people that started them, it's so similar. It's maybe dialectically different in terms of where they grew up, where they were born, what the cultural parameters were at the time, but at the core, it all points to, I think, this idea of we are all one. It is the divine within, and it's just the myriad the myriad expressions of a singular reality.
Can you expand on the, you said creativity of mind? That's the one thing that distinguishes you. So can you elaborate?
Sure. Creative power of thought is what I said. We understand that thoughts become things, and that our consciousness manifests in the world, particularly in our own individual lives. And so we spend time learning about taking responsibility for what moves through our consciousness, because we know we're going to be living what we focus on most completely. Does that make sense to you, the way I said that?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what we add into the things that we've been talking about. So we spend time, in what we would say in consciousness, looking at the thoughts that we're thinking and what it is that we would like to bring forth into expression in our lives. We're just seeking to do that consciously. I think that this creative process is happening all the time, but we're doing it often unconsciously. So we're just trying to be conscious about it and to bring forth, the things that we truly are helpful and good in the world.
So if I may ask you, how do you explain the existence of evil in the world?
Great question.
I'm laughing because it is such a great question. Religious science does not have a devil. So what we say is that there actually is only one thing. But we know, as people living on a relative plane, that we can turn to the good and turn away from the good. And so I would call evil, and I'm not really all that comfortable with that word, but I would call the not good when people turn away from good and do the things that are harmful to themselves and harmful to each other and harmful to the planet and harmful to life. We don't have an entity of evil in our philosophy. We just have the evil that people do.
Okay. I guess that was sort of a general way of, describing things like violence towards others, towards the environment, towards animals, war, just generally, those
Sure.
things that would be considered not good, the opposite of good, and how people get led on that path rather than a path towards good in their lives.
If you're asking that as a question, we all know, we all have pain in our own individual lives, and we know what we've done to transcend that and not live out of the woundings of the past. And there are many people who either don't have that information, haven't done the work, don't know that it's possible. They've grown up in environments where there is scarcity and fear and where violence looks like it's the right thing to do. And of course, any one of us probably pushed to a certain place could enact violence. I would hope not, but it could happen. And yet we always have a choice. Those of us who know and who are awake have a choice about what we're going to live in alignment with. And will we do our best to live in alignment with good and love and peace and all the principles that can be valued, or do we turn away from those things and enact other than that in the world? That's the choice, as I see it, very simply stated.
Mm-hmm. Is there any particular literature, such as do you recognize the Bible as being like the source of, or is there some other literature that's considered to be the source of truth and wisdom?
Our philosophy honors all paths, saying that all paths lead to God. And so we revere and support and utilize all of the sacred scriptures. Each individual minister is going to have the thing that they love to speak about, and it may not, and some people are more inclusive than others. But there is a definite honoring of all paths. The way I like to think about it is just as there's no one human language that makes all of the sounds that a human being can make, there is no one religion that has all of the revelation that we can have about this basically unknowable thing called God. And so just like it takes all the languages of the world to make all the sounds that a human being can make, it takes all the religions of the world to even begin to have insight and understanding into God. And so we appreciate all of the sources. We have our own book called The Science of Mind, which is our textbook, but we don't hold it as the one and only source.
Just getting back to what the precursor of that question, Carol, was this nature of evil, and like Christians, science of mind doesn't have an ultimate evil character, as the devil or whatever. And something that I've been literally thinking about excessively for a while now is what that question was, like, why does it exist? Why does evil exist, etc. And something that is just keeps coming back to me, and I wanted to just bounce it off of you, Dr. Hearn, if you would. And I, for fear that maybe it's overly simplistic, but I've been going back to commandments of Christian faith, different tenets, that say you should not do these things, etc. And one thing I keep coming back to is in the Christian faith, the very first two things are love God with your whole heart, mind, body, soul, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. That's the second. And it seems to me that you could pretty much take everything that's going on that is quote evil in the world and boil it down to an inability or an unwillingness for most everyone to do those things. I'm not saying everybody, but I mean, why is it okay to exploit the environment, to exploit other people, to do this? It's because of a lack of a recognition that of the oneness of ourselves, of the divine within our brother and our sister, to love them as we love ourselves, as we love God. And I don't know, maybe that is an overly simplistic view of it, but it just seems like, if you really love somebody, are you going to do the things that we do all the time to other people? Because we can justify it by saying, well, they're not us. They're different. Their skin color is different. They speak a different language. They have a different God they pray to. Whatever it is, it all comes back down to an inability to love them as they are, and therefore, in your mind, justify rationally that it's okay to put yourself above them because you're better than they are. And from that is this disconnect and this separation of, where one person, one group, one, nation, tribe, whatever, can elevate itself or elevate itself by, pushing somebody else down, thereby justifying any action they take in the conquest of, stealing their land or their food or continuing to oppress them. And I just was wondering if you think that it's overly simplistic, that it's born out of an inability to really, truly love other people.
I think I may have lost a little bit of your speaking there, but